And what that means for us is, in this culture and social media and trolls and all this stuff, people talk about like they're haters and that kind of thing. And I want to prove them wrong. Well, we more so want to do things for the people that are supporting us. And we want to prove ourselves right. You have to believe in yourself a certain amount to pursue being a college athlete.
Welcome to the Jamodi Podcast. We are all surrounded by amazing coaches and leaders. So let's get an inside look at not just what they do, but how they do what they do. After all, becoming the best versions of ourselves is Jamodi, just a matter of doing it. Today we are joined by the head men's basketball coach at Paul Quinn College, Brandon Espinosa. Last season, Coach Espinosa led the Tigers to their first USCAA national championship in 30 years. They were also the 2022 RRAC West Division champions, the first ever since joining in 1998. The last two seasons, his teams finished with a 43-10 record. Coach Espinosa was named USCAA National Coach of the Year in 2022. He's been involved with several prominent select basketball organizations in the Dallas-Fort Worth area, including Pro Skills and Drive Nation. Before we hear from Coach, take a moment to subscribe to our podcast and follow us on social media at Jamodi Podcast.
Coach, what's going on, man?
There it is. What's up, man?
Long time no see.
Coach, we did it. I wore you down so much that you had no choice but to say, all right, I'll come on and talk hoops.
And I've been wanting to do it for so long too. It's just, coaching year round. This is year 7. I didn't count one of those COVID years because we didn't really coach a real season of EYBL.
Yeah.
Actually year 8, but this is year 7 of back-to-back seasons, whether it's JUCO or Paul Quinn, so you're just swamped,
Yep. And that I get that. And that's kind of where I wanted to have you on for a few reasons. One is Tyler Lumblade always spoke so highly of you, a few years ago with the interactions you guys had in select ball, but then also because of all the things that you do. I mean, you're going right from having a great season to now working with Pro Skills 16U. You seem to never stop. And that's just impressive to me.
Yeah. Tyler's my guy. He's over at TCU now. I live like 5 campus over in Fort Worth. And so always in the preseason, I make it a point to go up there and watch those guys work. What Coach Dixon has done over there since he's been there, and obviously Benford and Coach Broussard, what those guys have done since they've been there is special. And so, obviously Tyler moving from SMU to TCU, I got a chance to catch up with him, chop it up. Obviously, I was in your guys' gym all the time. He played with us over at Drive, and I was able to coach him. He played 17, so he was a sophomore. But I mean, it's cool to see those guys and to maintain those relationships after you coach them, at the AAU level. And then you see them kind of go down their path and their process with, college sports. So it's cool to see them. And I'm glad we have that connection. And then obviously, I went to school with your sister. So we have that connection as well. She was a player, man. She was, heady guard, hitting jump shots, getting to the basket. So I'm glad we're finally getting a chance to do this. I'm excited.
I'm so glad you brought that up because I had it in my notes about your time at Dallas Christian College and I forgot the awareness that you already had of my sister. For people that don't know, I have a younger sister, Becky. She's 3 years younger than me. And man, growing up, she was the natural. Like I had to grind and work really, really hard. We go to the YMCA together in Berwick, Pennsylvania. Parents would drop us off. I'd go into the gym and work, and she'd go play ping pong and be behind the desk. But then when she played, she could just do it. And, her life took some turns. She started off at the Naval Prep Academy to play basketball. And the thought was that she'd go to NAPS or she was at NAPS and go to the Naval Academy after. And then life took some different turns. She went overseas for a long time as a student, but then also with kind of missionary work. She comes back to the U.S. probably about like a 25 or 26-year-old, wants to finish school, goes to Dallas Christian. She's playing in the rec, and some of the girl players there were like, hey, you need to come out and play with us. So my sister played college basketball like as a 25, 26-year old, and but not having worked on her game at all for years, could still just naturally do it. So I'm glad we had the opportunity to give her a little bit of a shout out on here.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, and now that's not so crazy, right? A 25
That's
college
right.
basketball player. But back then it was because I had a little bit different journey too as a player. Ended up back at Dallas Christian to get a degree to play for a different head coach, and my experience was so much different.
Hmm.
And that's one of the things that because I went to Dallas Christian twice, played for two different head coaches, and my experience was so different the second time around. That's the thing that I tell a lot of my guys that get recruited, in the AAU deal is you got to build relationships before you get on campus, because when you get there, everybody is selling these high
Yeah.
level,
Yeah.
dreams, and now it's NIL and all this other stuff. But you have to build genuine relationships, and then on the coaching side of it too, that's our job as coaches. You can't just coach these kids and you don't know anything about them. You have to have more than one way to relate with them. But man, I enjoyed my time at Dallas Christian College. I played for a guy named Charles Williams. He played overseas for like 15, 20 years. He played at Oklahoma State when it was the Big Eight, and so to get that experience, a Division I level guy, a pro at the small college level, Christian college level. I mean, that really kind of opened my eyes up to what this thing could be. And he's one of the reasons why I wanted to be a coach. Um, the thing that he used to say was, somewhere someone is waiting on you to do what God has called you to do. And when he said that, my mind was just like blown. I mean,
Hmm.
it blew my mind because I never thought of it that way, right? Like things are done with intention and God has a plan, and then we have our own plan, and like they say, God laughs at it. Uh but when he said that to me, it really changed my outlook on this thing, on being able to coach, connect. Obviously is like a buzzword now, but being able to connect with people, and then being able to adapt to coach different kids from different backgrounds. And so, I'm thankful for him. He was my first real mentor. Thankful for him for that time, and it really kind of planted that seed. And I've been able to have a blessed career because of that start I got with him as a player and then as a grad assistant.
Thank you for sharing that. And what a great reminder for coaches that we really do have a lot of responsibility to create the right environment and the experience and a good experience for these players. You're not going to be able to make everybody happy. Happy is different. That's an emotion. I'm happy when I start eating ice cream, and I'm not happy after I'm done eating ice cream. So it's not about happy, but you're right on the money. Like coaches really do drive the direction of the culture or the feel of the program, because most colleges, we just went on a college tour at our school. We visited four different universities, and I found great things in all of them. So, like, universities are going to have good things, but what that program's like, playing for Dave Bliss for 3 years and Scott Drew for my last year, very different environments, And so, but I think that's a great reminder for us is we will sometimes the kids won't come back, and sometimes they'll have problems with the school, but we got to do our very, very best to, with what we can control, create that kind of special environment.
Yeah, no, I agree. And I think one of the things I try to, really let my players know and remind them is while we are holding them accountable, I'm tough on my guys. I build relationships with them. But the men's basketball program for us here at Paul Quinn, it should be a safe haven for our players, right? Like I know who you are when I recruit you. There's kids that come from all kinds of different backgrounds, socioeconomic, single parent, sometimes they're coming from granny or whatever. And then we also have kids that are two parent homes. So it's a bunch of different backgrounds. But when you come here, the men's basketball program is your safe haven. Like you're allowed to be you. We're not going to judge you for being you. My job is to correct you. My job is to obviously be a role model and show you that, kids that come from that background can chase their dreams and achieve their dreams, right? But then the other side of it is being able to connect with players on a level to where they respect you for holding them accountable, and then they're able to move past whatever the issue is and not think about it or dwell on it and be inundated with negativity. And I think that's the transition. You hear a lot of narrative about this new age player and the portal and all this stuff. And I'm like, I love it. I love the
Yeah.
portal. Like I'm getting better players. I'm getting better players because there's less spots, and this is a place that people are now choosing over other places. This used to be a place before I got here, and we have a rich history and tradition of winning championships. But for a while there, here at Paul Quinn, this wasn't a place that people chose. This was a place people went to because it was, their only option, or it was close to home, or
Last
whatever.
chance you.
Yeah, and that
Yeah.
narrative become a place that people are choosing.
Yeah.
The gym is cool, and we got a lot of notoriety for that. But this is a players program, and our job is to be a safe haven for our players, to help them go through whatever they're going through. We always talk about mental health, but are you actually helping these kids recognize and realize that some of the things that they've normalized in their lives are not normal, and that's okay. And as you transition into, being a young adult, and then obviously out on your own in the world, you have to be able to separate. And there comes a point when, what you went through as a kid and how you were raised, that can no longer be a crutch. And now it's about who I am as a young man and what I'm choosing to do and be moving forward. And I think that's one of the biggest blessings that we have, as head coaches, is we get to have that space where players are feeling comfortable being themselves, and then they become comfortable being held accountable, and then they start to hold themselves and their teammates accountable, and it just creates this competitive atmosphere, where you talk about culture. I think it's more like our belief system, and it just it turns into something special, and that's what we've done here at Paul Quinn.
We already touched on, or started to touch on, culture a little bit, and you're right on the money. It's values, how we show up, and not necessarily just that buzzword. And it's something that's been around for a long time. Your experience, it's your fourth year at Paul Quinn. Just finished your fourth?
Just finished the fourth year. Yes, sir.
And the turnaround has been incredible. You went from there's a 7-25 year to you came, and then 26-2, like a 19-game turnaround. And then in 21-22, you won a national championship. And so in just a short amount of time, you've been able to do amazing things. And I got to imagine that your standards and pillars of your program are a big part of that. So I'd love for you to share just kind of what those are.
Yeah, I think, everybody talks about like the wins and the losses, a lot more than we should. I think the thing that we try to do here in our program is we talk about, our process, and that process for everybody is different. And so even when it comes from like recruiting a player, the things like in our belief system that we talk about is we talk about proving ourselves right. So that's one. You prove yourself right. So to go back to what I said before, somewhere someone is waiting on you to do what God has called you to do, right? For our players and for us as coaches, we want to prove ourselves right. So we want to do things out of love, not out of hate. And what that means for us is, in this culture and social media and trolls and all this stuff, people talk about like they're haters and that kind of thing. And I want to prove them wrong. Well, we more so want to do things for the people that are supporting us. And we want to prove ourselves right. You have to believe in yourself a certain amount to pursue being a college athlete, because there is a strenuous schedule. You're going to have ups and downs. It's hard. You got to balance, social life, being a student, all the things that go into being a college athlete. And so that's one of the first things that we talk about. We want to be able to prove ourselves right. We want to do things from a positive mindset, do things out of love, and focus on us and not on, the people that are outside of our boat, right? The second thing that we talk about is,
Coach, can I jump in real quick on the after the first one? Because I think that's great. You're choosing more of an optimistic approach to a kid and a player rather than a pessimistic. And I wonder how many coaches when we have somebody new come to our school, or even somebody that we know maybe has been in some trouble in the past academically with their behavior, whatever, we almost, I don't know if we even realize we're almost waiting for them to screw up again. Like they just have to, they're almost proving to us that, oh yeah, that's what I thought they were really like. Instead of the way you're looking at it is more of an optimistic, like I believe that they're going to, the way we feel or want them to be, that they're actually going to do that. Like they're gonna rise to that standard that we've set. And I just think that that's a better way to look at players and their potential than the I'm just ready and waiting for them to screw up mentality.
No, absolutely. And that's part of, the belief system for us. All this is predicated on empowering our players, right? And that's what it turns into at the end. And we'll talk about that here later. But we're recruiting a guy who has had some issues, and we're empowering them and saying, hey, at some of these other places, maybe you didn't play as much as you wanted to, or maybe something happened, or, a falling out with the coaching staff, or a coaching change, whatever it may be. But we have a standard here, but your standard for yourself should be higher than what we expect of you. Like this is your life. This is the rest of your life. As coaches, I mean, God willing, I'll coach 20 more years. These kids have four
Yeah.
now, five with COVID, and there's no guarantee afterwards that you're going to play this game again at a competitive level. Like, yeah, men's leagues and all that when we get old, but and
It's
that's
different.
yeah, that's part of it for these guys. Like they have to understand how special this time in their life is, and how things can go really, really well, and your trajectory can change. And if you really lock in and buy in during this time, the rest of your life is significantly better. Or you can be the guy at the barbecue, talking about, my coach was a hater, and oh, I shoulda, woulda, coulda, and I got recruited by such and such, just it's about controlling that, and empowering these guys to know that they actually have more control than they think they do. And so that's why proving yourself right is such a big part of it for us, is because they have to be a little bit crazy to pursue this in the first place. They
Mm.
have to have some kind of support system, right, before they get to us. And then when they get to us, obviously that's us. And then, taking them through these steps. And so that's just the first part. The next part of it for us is love your process. And this one is a big one for us because every individual's process is different.
Yeah.
We can be the same team, we can both be talented, and we play different positions, but our process is so different. And part of loving your process is identifying what it is. Like we've got to be able to sit down with a kid and player development, mental health, building the relationship with them, and then saying, hey, this is the process that we're going to work, and we've got a long way to go in this area, but you're a lot further along in this area, and we don't compare them to other players. It's their personal journey, right?
Mm.
it,
Yeah.
it's no relationship with themselves and what they have to do. And one of the biggest parts of that, because it's not just goal oriented, right, is them identifying a part of their process is, what is your why? Like, why are you doing this? Like, who are you?
Yeah.
And then when things get hard, we have these conversations and we build these relationships. And when things get hard, we know what their why is, and we're going to pull them to the side, and we're allowed to, not, I wouldn't say press those buttons, but bring those things up and say, hey, man, we're doing this for a reason. We're close enough to where we can bring those things up. We have that type of relationship. And so as you're working this process and it gets really frustrating and really hard, and there's ups and downs, you can always take a step back. You can take a deep breath and then remember, hey, part of my process is this. This is my why. And now it's all starting to kind of make more sense.
If you don't have those conversations with them, sit down and have that meeting, then you might be holding a player accountable or to standards that he doesn't even want or recognize, or maybe his idea or path where he wants to go is completely different than what you think. And I think that's a big piece that you talked about, is having that meeting. And Kelvin Sampson said, if you don't know where you're going, if you don't know your why, then any road will take you there. I think that there's two sides to that. On the player, they need to know their why, but as coaches, we need to know their why so that we can actually be on the same road with them, or else we could be thinking, yeah, we're moving this direction. It's the exact opposite where that player wants to go. Like you said, with that, with your skill, or even with where they want to be in their life or their careers.
No, absolutely. I agree. And there's been times when players have come back, you know, later on in the season and they're like, "Hey coach, I thought this was my why and it's not." That doesn't make any sense to me now. I thought I wanted to be a pro and I wanted to. They're like, "No, I want to do this for my family. I want to go back to my community where I'm the only one who's gone to college, and I want to tell them and share this with them that
Hmm.
it's possible." And that's special, because we have the type of relationship with our guys where, hey, if coaches are making mistakes, speak up. Like, we're not perfect either. Like, I don't run the type of program, where it's do as I say, not as I do. I'm trying to be a role model to these guys. I have a daughter, I've got a wife, and my parents are around our program.
Hmm.
Uh, so they get to see me do it every day. And I think that adds a little bit, another layer to it where, they can understand that, hey, I come from the similar background as you guys, and this is what it's turned into. And I want that for you guys. It's not just about winning a championship. It's not just about, playing basketball, but it's about more than just basketball. And I think, that comes with time when you have your players reaching out to you year after year after you're done coaching them, and
How do you handle the sorry, how do you handle that question or that moment? Because like at the high school level, early on in players' careers, playing college basketball sounds really good. And it sounds like everybody's doing it, everybody wants to do it, and that it's not that hard. And then I've seen maybe sometimes during their senior year, when they're really starting to look for, like, a year from now, am I going to be a college player? They realize whether they want to truly put in that time or not, that how hard that grind is. And so sometimes they come up to me and I almost feel like they're not ashamed, but a little worried about how I'll react, or how I'll, like, if they've been preaching I want to play, or saying I want to play college basketball, and all of a sudden, you know what? I just don't think that's the path I want to go. I've never reacted badly to that, but I felt that hesitancy from them. How do you feel or react when here's the plan that you and that player had? You thought you're on the same page and moving the same direction. Something changes in their life. How do you deal with that?
I think as our players, we've been fortunate enough to have in our 4 years here, we played three because obviously we didn't play 1 year because of COVID, but we've had three guys play pro basketball in those 4 years, and that's a big deal because it means that one, they're prepared, two, they're talented enough, and then how long they stick. There's a lot of different variables to all
Yeah.
that, right? They're younger rookie jobs and they're going to have to work through some of those things. But it's a testament to how hard these guys work. And, when a player comes to you and has a change of heart, right? My job is not to judge that change of heart. It's to listen and figure out where it's coming from. I've had guys that, have kids and they're like, "Hey coach, I want to be here with my family. I want to try to find something here, or I want to be a coach. What do you think?" I've had those type of questions. And then, the other guys who didn't know if they wanted to play or pursue pro basketball afterwards, they're gung ho about it now. And they're like, "Coach, it's all or nothing. I need workouts. I need to figure it out. Like, can you train me? You coached in the G League. Should I go try out for the Texas Legends?" And it's like, hey, listen, all this, it's like starting over from high school to college. It's the same thing. You go from being hero to zero, and you've got to figure out the right path for you. And then it goes back to that process. Your process is going to be different coming from a small college. So you're going to be up against Division I players who maybe didn't play, but they were at the Division I level.
Yeah.
And you're a guy who's all conference and averaged a double double. There's a market for you, 100%. Now we just got to make the right connections and reach out to some agents every year. for my seniors. I bring in a couple of guys, from Mexico, and a guy who has connections in Mexico played there, other agents with small market connections, and they get a chance to evaluate my guys, and then they'll come back with feedback, and then I'll pass it along to them and say, hey, look, this is what they're telling me.
Golly, that's valuable right there.
And so now that dream that you were chasing becomes more of a reality. And so that's kind of what I see. My job is one, we got to prepare them, in more ways than one, not just basketball to be a pro, because there's a lot of pitfalls in
Yeah.
that world. But then as we get closer and we start to narrow things down, career wise, whether it's basketball or in the corporate workplace, being able to help these guys with relationships, always being somebody they can use as a reference, and then just being there as an ear that they can count on to talk to and share with. I think that's part of the relationship bit as well.
What other pillars do you have, just to kind of circle back to the culture piece?
The last part is stay different, and so you believe in yourself. You prove yourself right. You figure out kind of what your circle is and what your why. You love your process. You figure out what it is. You work that process. You eliminate those distractions. And at some point, when you're loving your process, you become different, right? You become a better version of yourself. Maybe not the best version of yourself yet, but a better version of yourself. And our goal is once you become different, you stay different. And that's across the board. That's as a human being, that's as a teammate, that's as a basketball player, that's as a son, that's as some of my guys have kids, that as a father. We want these guys to have a better life when they leave our place. And so what's the point of doing all this work and making all these changes and being a better version of yourself just to revert back to all your old habits? And so that last piece to me, once we get you there, we have built in a certain amount of equity, all of us together. We want you to maintain that level. And no, it doesn't mean you're going to have a six pack for the rest of your life, right? I'm meaning more, I'm meaning more like, the quality of life and the things that you believe in, and how hard it is being a man and trying to navigate that space, being a young adult in this social media world, and instant gratification and all those things. We preach these things to our guys. Don't get lost in the moment where you can throw things away that you've worked so hard to build over a long period of time. And staying different to us, it means, and I talked about it earlier, when they go back to wherever they came from, right? Whatever neighborhood, whatever city, whatever that is, people can tell that they are different. They've matured, they've grown, and they're not just going to fall for anything. We talk about everything. We're open with our players. I'm honest with my guys. I talk about my family. I talk about my marriage. I talk about being a dad. My brother is my assistant coach. And so, sometimes that can strain our relationship because we work every day. And then he was my assistant coach at Drive Nation, means this year, but opening the door to those conversations about life and about struggles and about, vices and stuff like that, it really allows them to open themselves up. And so when they have an issue, we can talk about it and they don't feel judged.
Yeah.
And as we're working through the accountability process, we talk about not looking back, because once there's no going back now. You've changed, you're different. I don't want to hear the excuses. I don't want to hear no, oh, I didn't know or anything like that. And you got to be better. And so I think that belief system for our program has really worked. It works in recruiting because we're explaining to our guys when they get here, they don't have to be fully baked. We're going to work with you. We're going to coach you. We're going to invest in you. And, at the end of the day, the only way that we can live and operate is by doing the work.
Yeah.
The success, but there's no way you're going to have success without it. And I think our players over the time that we've been here at Paul Quinn have really bought into that, and they believe in it 100%.
And those principles, they're great for basketball, but they're really transformational for their lives. What kind of pressure? And I think that word pressure is not bad. What kind of pressure do you feel to live up to those standards yourself? Because I've kind of heard you say that throughout, but I wonder how many coaches, like, excellence is one of our culture pieces, and there's some things underneath that. But excellence, it's not perfection, but it's a standard that we're trying to live up to and do. But I mean, I think about the times of my life, even now, where I'm not excellent, and I wonder if that's a message that I'm sending my players that is confusing. So, what kind of pressure do you feel to live up to those standards that you've set for your program?
I think for me, it's about, you talk about like capacity, you talk about bandwidth, you talk about balance. I think that in order for me to be able to coach these guys the way that I do, I have to have the capacity to be able to do all of these things and do them wholeheartedly.
Yeah.
I can't I can't tell my players, hey, don't be out here doing, crazy stuff and I'm doing crazy stuff. Like, it just doesn't work. I can't tell my player, hey man, I know you're talking to, these two girls, you need to settle down and you need to find the one that's good for you and one that's going to help you if I'm not doing that.
Mm.
Right. And so I think, one, you have to be who you are. Like, you can't just tell these guys, I want you to do this, I want you to do that, but you have to show them. And so, I mean, we talked about it. Like, my daughter is around the program. My wife is around the program. My family, my friends, like obviously my brother, he's an assistant coach. They're around the program. And so I don't just talk about it. I'm actively living it in front
Yeah.
of them. And so if I'm not living my life right and I'm not doing the things that I think I should be doing, I would not have the capacity to be able to pour and invest in these guys the way that I feel that I should. And we'll take players that have had an issue, right? Like, certain things, obviously, we're not gonna accept. But a player who's had a great issue here or there and has worked hard to get back eligible, right? We'll take those type of guys because we're not here trying to throw kids away after they've made a mistake. Hey, you've worked through it. I made mistakes as a player. I made mistakes as a coach. We're never going to be that type of program where we're like holier than now
Yeah.
and we don't make mistakes and that type of deal. But if I can't be genuine in the things that I'm asking of them because I know that I'm not doing them myself, then your players sniff that out. I mean, 100%, they sniff out the guys that are fraud, the guys that are fake. I've been around people that players just can't stand them. It's not that they don't respect them as a coach. It's more so that they don't respect them as a person. And it turns into like mental warfare.
Mm.
And so I think that the biggest thing for me is, we talked about, like, I'm going to be positive. I'm going to pour into you. I'm going to live my life right and try to have as much balance as I can so that when things go wrong as a head coach, because it's day to day. I've got my finger on the pulse of 23 guys, right? Or however, assistant coaches as well, administrate. Like, when something goes wrong, I have to have the capacity to be able to balance my personal life and being a dad and being a son and a brother and manage my players and help them the absolute best way that I can. And if I don't have that balance and I don't have that capacity, then any little thing can throw your program in disarray. And I just don't believe in that. So I try really, really, really hard to make sure that I'm doing things correctly and living by what I'm talking to my players about, so that when it comes time to correct them, there's no fake, there's no fraud. It's 100% genuine, and we're doing things with intention.
Coaches, the Jamodi podcast is powered by Ballogy. Manage and measure your players' skill development and increase accountability year-round utilizing the Ballogy app. Boost inter-squad competition with drills backed by the National High School Basketball Coaches Association, including a 40-shot Ballogy skills assessment. Please visit ballogy.com/teams for information on how you can provide this resource for your team. At the high school level, most high schools we don't know or we don't get to control the players that come in. And so there's this idea that every year, depending on the talent that's in the school, in the gym, I've got to change and tweak my style a little bit. At college level, I mean, you do get to recruit the players that you like, that fit the way that you want to play. But for you, how much of it is style based, or I'm going to change my style based on the players that I have?
For us, it's going to be best player available. I mean, we're going to go get the absolute best players that we can find. We're going to bring them here. We're obviously we've recruited them, so we know kind of what their strengths are, and we're going to figure out a way to utilize those strengths. Obviously, we want to play a certain type of way. Like I want to guard and be tough and be aggressive. You know, we want to attack, but I'm going to find the best player available, and I'm going to use that player's skill set to the best of his ability and my ability. You know, if that means running a certain type of offense, you know, that maybe I'm not the greatest at, or I don't know as well to be able to use him, I'm going to do it. I don't care about that.
You're going to learn it. Yeah.
I'm going to learn it so that we can figure out a way to max this guy's talent out. You know, and then obviously coaching guys on the defensive end, you know, that's the hardest part of our game is guarding the ball. You know, so, you know, all of that comes later. But I'm going to go get the best player available, and we're going to figure it out. We're going to figure it out together how we can max this guy out and you know, make that an advantage for us. So I don't really believe in only recruiting a certain type of player for a certain type of system or whatever. Like we've got to be able to adjust as coaches. And so, you know, yeah, you know, the plays will change and this and that, but we're going to get the best player, and we're going to figure out a way to win with those guys.
I think that's the sweet spot. And I've unfortunately been, and maybe as a younger coach, it's just easier to start to get really arrogant and think that it's your system that is the reason why you're winning. And you forget the fact that it's really your players. And you got to do a good job of, like you said, taking the strengths that they do and finding the best way to play. And then, but you also mentioned like there's a certain way that you like to. So I think if it's more concept based, you can plug players in different ways. And like you said, on the defensive end, it's pretty simple. You've got to be able to guard the ball. What are some ways that you produce? I'm always curious on guarding the ball, keeping it in front, but still pressuring. What are some ways that you help your players to do that well?
You know, obviously we do a lot of defensive stuff in practice. You know, we do a lot of one-on-one stuff. You know, we really try to dictate. So we force weak. We watch film on it. You know, we're loaded up, so we're able to help each other. And then one of the things that we do too, that's kind of worked for us is my best defender will deny their best player for the majority of the game. And so, you know, that's almost like a box and one for the most part. You know, we'll switch if they run them off a bunch of screens or whatever. But, you know, the elbows and boxes concept with a deny, it just disrupts the offense so much. You know, we've played guys that average 25, 26 points a game, and my best defender is a tough kid, and he's denying them, and the kid just goes and stands in the corner, and he's like, y'all got it. Like, shuts him down. So I think that part of it too, you know, obviously we're going to go over certain things in practice where, you know, we're going to get better individually, you know, which helps us get better as a team. And then we go through our team concepts and coverages and all that stuff, right? That's very normal. But then when you start to put in place the things that you like and it's working with a certain group, we'll stick to it. Yeah. You know, I'm not a zone guy, so I'm never going to run zone, but you know, when you're messing with coverages and junking it up and you find something that works and then your team's buying in, like to me, that's you believing in them because they figured out something that they think is working or a guy will bring it up. Hey, coach, let's just keep trapping. Let's trap. And I'm like, okay, well, let's do it. You know, we work on it in practice. I mean, we're doing shell for 45 minutes a day, grinding them, you know, and if they say they believe in something, we're going to do it. So I think that's kind of how we've done it here.
That goes back to empowering your players, like you said, in your culture. I think you and I played, and so sometimes we still think that we know exactly what our guys are going through because we played. You know, for me 20 years ago, and for you a little less. But I think it's important to remember that they're the ones out there actually playing, and what they see and feel might be different from what we see and feel. I love that idea of just denying the best player and having your better defender on him. I wonder, like you said, he averages 20, and then all of a sudden might not be able to completely. There will be players that still work to get the ball and still and actions that create. But what if you just take 25% of their usage away? 40% of their usage away. I think that's enough against some teams, because a lot of teams that you and I know, they will need one guy at least to do a lot of things. And you take 25 to 40% away of that player's usage, shots, time he has with the ball in his hands, maybe that equates to 5, 10, 15 points different that they could have had. I think that's huge.
No, it is, and at the end of the day, that's our job. On the defensive end, is to limit their efficiency. So you're figuring out what they're good at, and obviously, game to game, it can be a little bit different, right? There's teams that are great offensive rebounding. There's teams that get to the foul line a lot, and so you're trying to navigate to limit those things that they're great at. But I think limiting the usage of one of their best players has really worked for us. So obviously, the use of synergy and some of these other apps where you're able to look at the analytics of it when you're going through the scout. Like, I'm a video guy. Like, I'm watching film. I'm breaking it down. Like, when we watch, we played TCU this year. We played SMU this year. These guys are transferring in and they've never actually played in a SMU uniform. So because of synergy, I'm allowed to go back and watch their AAU games. I can watch their college games if they were at another Division I or junior college or whatever, wherever they've been at, and you're able to find an advantage on the individual player. And I think that's what's really helped us, is being able to identify these habits, right, that their best players have, and then trying to take it away. And like what you're saying, it'll tell you, like, this guy has the ball in his hands 27% of the time. So if you take the ball out of his hands, somebody else has got to make those decisions, and now it's a different team.
Yes.
And so that's really helped us on the scouting side, uh, you know, from a standpoint of being able to take away what they're best at and trying to get them to do something else. And it doesn't always work against those big teams, obviously, but it prepares us for our league, and we've got a really tough league. So
I think if anytime that you can, like, think about what you work on offensively, the majority of your time, whether it's certain man to man quick hitters or whatever. If you could take the other teams, take what they do a majority of the time in practice and basically wipe it out, make it obsolete or make it different, then, like you said, all of a sudden you're playing against a team that's a little bit uncomfortable or just doing a few things. There's this whole Tyler Costin has this lock left offense or defense that he's working on, where the whole idea is just push every player left. And it's interesting, like, because instead of forcing sideline or baseline, they have the ball on the right side. They're going left, so they're kind of being forced middle. But think of how many right-handed players that can go left but don't prefer it, and maybe you're dropping what they do and their confidence down just a little bit. You do that enough over the course of the 5 players, and then again they're running at, like you said, a different efficiency. I think there's a lot of brilliance to that, man.
no, absolutely. And my players get tired of me because literally on every player in the scout, it's gonna say force weak.
Yeah.
So say it once in the keys, we're gonna put it on every individual player because we've watched enough film on them. We know. And obviously with some players it's not as noticeable because they can go left and right, and they're very skilled, tough players. But it only becomes obvious when it's the kid who can only go one way. And I'm like, you guys are taking it to the extreme on him because he's so good with one hand and so bad with the other, but it actually works with the other guys as well.
Yep.
And so that's something that we really try to emphasize. But I agree. I mean, you can really change the makeup of a game by being able to do that.
What's a rule change that you would love to see, and why?
Okay, so I saw I listened to the podcast where Jamin was talking about these crazy ass rules. That guy's ridiculous. One free throw 3. That's ridiculous.
I
I'm
thought it
gonna.
was too much too.
I know, coach. I know, coach. I'm gonna call him. Inbounding with no whistle, ridiculous. We're not doing that. That's crazy to me. But I'm gonna call coach and tell him. I thought that was really funny. And I do want to speed the game up too. I get it. The only thing that I would say is one. Obviously, we got to have a shot clock in high school. 30-second shot clock in high school. I
Thanks,
mean,
man.
it doesn't make sense to not have it. They use it on every other level. Let's just start implementing it now and let's just be done with it. Like, I get it, the costs, like that's what everybody talks about. But you like on our side for the AAU, like the 17s play with a 24-second shot clock, the 16s play with a 30-second shot clock. So they're getting prepared now for what they're about to walk into at the college level. So I would definitely do that, and then at the college level, I would drop it to 24 seconds too. It gives us more possessions. It speeds the game up a little bit more. 15 seconds on a reset. I like that. And then if I'm being really honest,
Let's go.
I would like to get rid of the coaching box and be able to walk my ass to half court anytime I want and not hear that, hey, coach, get back or whatever. And I get it. I get it. I get it. I honestly get it.
Well, to me, it should be more of a judgment. Like, who is this guy abusing this? Like, if you're going down to coach your guys and to be actually like helping your team, then
Yeah.
what's the problem? If you're going after the other coach or the officials that far, then yeah, you got to get back. Like maybe it's the coach's box is more of a consequence, not just the rule. And
Yeah.
because if you're going to half court, like, hey, we're in this, hey, like it's late in the game, or you're giving some instruction, why not? Like, but obviously you take it too far. That, hey, coach, you got to get back to your box. I don't know. I like that.
Yeah, I like that. I like stomping up the sidelines. I enjoy being the head coach and having fun and I like to talk to the officials, not just complaining. Like I talk to the officials. I know these guys. They've refed us on the AAU side. Like, and that's the hardest part. I think that's one thing that us coaches got to do a better job of is valuing these guys and how hard their job is. And I know in the moment we get all riled up, but taking away the coach's box and us being able to coach our guys up into maybe half court or something. As long as we're not abusing it, like you said, I think that would be cool. But that's never going to happen. So that's wishful thinking, man.
you can write a strongly worded letter to the NCAA to try to get that. But you're right on the money with officials, though. I mean, I think high school coaches know at this point. I don't know how many times I'm getting emails from these big chapters saying that there's a shortage, and I got to imagine that a large reason is because of coaches and fans and players just abusing. And you're right, like without them, it'll just be pickup. It'll just be us coaching and reffing, and it won't matter. We need these guys, and majority of them love the game. They love kids, and they just want to be there and be a part of it and help out. And golly, like I'm watching my son play select ball, and I almost feel like asking my wife, like, can we just go move and sit somewhere alone? It's just tough, man.
Yeah, so you can say what you want. I get it.
No, so I don't have to listen to the parents. No, I'm not saying anything. Because again,
Yeah,
it's like maybe it helps that we played, but PGC, they have a great little segment that we do at Point Guard College. It's about officials, and officials will make 7 to 9 bad calls a game. 7 to 9 bad calls. If you go into the game knowing that, expecting that, then what we shouldn't be surprised. And it's not that they're intentionally doing that. They're human. And there's a lot that happens every possession that they could call and that they miss. But 7 to 9, and if parents could tally that up and then maybe start to get upset at the 10th, 11th, 12th, that would help out a ton.
yeah. I mean, I think when you look at it, the integrity of the game. I'm big on doing things the right way and loving the game. The refs are a part of that. And so while we may not agree with everything that, is called, right? And a lot of times, my biggest issue is always just consistency. Hey,
Yeah.
calling it down there and you call it down here, I'm good to go. But they're a part of the game, and it's the integrity of the game. And so, we've got to be able to reason, or be reasonable about these things. And that's, you see it on the sidelines, especially like more so on the AAU side. We don't see it as much in college because some of those people or players or whatever have been filtered out.
Yeah.
But I think it just sets a bad standard for what is realistic moving forward. It's just not acceptable the higher you go up, and once you know that and reconcile with that, you can move forward and not worry about it.
And you're right on the money. It's the consistency piece. I would rather, it's kind of like parenting, or if you teach a class, it's really easy at the beginning of the year to start tough and then to ease up as the game goes or as the year goes. It's really hard to start allowing everything and then try to tighten it up as the game goes by. So
Yeah.
set those standards. But I think that's the same for coaching too. Because at the beginning of the season, man, set those high standards, hold their feet to the fire, and have those expectations. And then if you choose throughout the year to lighten up, to have moments that they really appreciate and we get to enjoy. But going back to officials, that I agree, that is tough.
Yeah, no, it is.
The Jamodi podcast is powered by Sideline Interactive. Sideline Interactive is the leading manufacturer for high-quality, innovative scoring tables and LED video display boards that help coaches and schools bring more excitement to fans, create huge fundraising opportunities, and make their jobs easier. Visit sidelineinteractive.com to check out their amazing products. Individual skill work. It's something that I'm passionate about. I love getting to research and try to find new things, like, follow guys like Tyler Relf and Micah Lancaster, and they put a new video out. And if I watch it and I see the game behind it in a way that'll really help my players, help to have some game connectors, man, we experiment and we try it. How does individual skill development work into your daily practice?
We do a lot of player development here. Obviously, before I was a basketball coach, I guess a professional basketball coach, I did a lot of training. I think the base that I got for player development came when I was in the G League. I was able to see how they do it at that level and how important of a role it plays in the overall development of a player. The younger guys who didn't play, they're coming in early and they're getting a more strenuous workout before the game. If they didn't play, they're coming back, getting workouts earlier before the next day shoot around, and just kind of seeing the balance at which certain guys did it. We had a guy by the name of Bill Peterson as our player development coach. He's now at Baylor. He's not. And so I was able to kind of sit and learn and watch from him. Right before he was with us, he was the player development coach with the Milwaukee Bucks, and old school style, just got those guys to work so hard. And the growth that I saw, because he worked mainly with post players in our time there with the Legends, but the growth that I saw in a really, really short time with some of the things that he was doing, it immediately, like, boom, a light switch went off. And I was like, player development is important. Like, I never thought of it from that perspective, where this guy's getting so much better individually that he has to help us on the court now because he's gotten better. He's been doing this 2 months with Bill. And now, he's out there blocking shots, rebounding, and finishing. And so that's kind of where I started and saw that base. Here at the college, we do player development almost every day. We kind of have like a calendar, during the week, like Monday is like a defensive day. Tuesday is like a transition day. Wednesday is like mostly player development, and then concepts like offensive review and different things like that. So we kind of have a schedule for different things, but player development is really one of the backbones of what we do here. My brother is our player development coach. He's one of the best player development guys in the country. He's worked with All-American, work with pros, NBA guys, and to be able to utilize his skill set. And it's crazy because our guys are coming in and saying, "Hey, coach, can you meet me at practices at 12:30? Hey, can you meet me at 10? Hey, can you meet me at 9? Hey, can you meet me at 8?" And they're begging to get into the gym. And then when you do it in practice, it's just kind of reinforcing what we're doing. And we add our actions, right, to the player development piece. So it's something that is kind of two for one. But if you look at some of the players that we've recruited, like even our current All American, he was a walk on guy. He came to a tryout. He walked on 6'6", athletic, unorthodox game, from Hillsboro. His name's Travion Shaw. Didn't really have a skill set, but was a worker. Whatever you told him to do, he would do. And he got in the gym and he worked and he hustled and he got better. And he went from being a walk-on non-scholarship guy to a full ride All-American, player for us. And that's a testament to him as well. Obviously, he's got to put the work in, but we're trying to help these guys get there as quickly as we can. So it's a really important piece for us.
What I'm amazed by, like you go to these college games and I went down to watch Baylor and Villanova a few years ago, and I went a few hours early, and they're out on the floor and they're doing there's some of the routines and skill development things, but I'm amazed by the simplicity of it, and there's not tons of med balls and cones. And I think there's a time and place for that, because personally, I do love some of those things. But the simplicity of what they do with it, and I imagine that's kind of what you guys do and what you saw from him. Take me through just like what are some of the go-tos for some of your guards that you like to do?
Yeah, so with the guards, we really like to emphasize always attacking, right? We'd like to play off 2 feet, obviously, but there's going to be times where you're going to have to finish in traffic off 1 foot and a little off balance. So we do a lot of work on things that we see in our game, right? So if there's a certain type of shot we're trying to manufacture, we're going to work on those things consistently. We got to have guys that can touch the paint, because then we're creating from inside the paint, not from the 3-point line. Our guards got to have vision. So we're going to do different player development where they're having to make a pass, or there's coaches or managers there, and they've got to hit that window, or they've got to hit that pocket. Obviously, relocating and footwork, like things that they're going to be doing consistently. We're not going to waste time with the step backs and all the extra dribbling stuff, because that's not how our offense works. You're going to shoot it, you're going to move it, you're going to attack. And if it's not there, you're going to pull it out and you're going to run something. And we're big on quick hitters where there's a mismatch. We're trying to find the mismatch. We'll push in transition. It's not there, pull it out, find the mismatch, and run a quick hitter for that player. And so that's the other side of it, being able to recognize it quickly, get us set up, and then we're ready to roll. And so I think for our guys too, being able to watch, we always come back and watch our film. That's the other side of our player development, coming back and watching our film, going through some of these things and saying, "Hey, look, man, right here, this is what we're talking about." And so when you get back to practice, you're not just saying, "Hey, do this." You're saying, "Hey, this is what we didn't do well as a team or as an individual. Let's go ahead and work on it in this session with Coach Aaron or with Coach Kelly, me, and let's get better at it."
Coach, that's really good. I think if two areas, if you're a player listening to this or a coach listening to this, it's the same. Think about offensively where your shots come from and where you're trying to attack and how you get there. And so if a player comes up to me and says, "Well, coach, when I'm by myself in a gym, I'm not really sure what to do," I think you turn that back around and be like, okay, well, think about ball is in your hands and you're in an alley and you have a double gap. How do you get to the world or the paint? What move gets you there? We load up a lot. So we're going to drive at you. We're going to lift our knee. We're going to pocket, land in a drop, and just try to push that off that hesitation. Okay, well, after you do that, what are you going to do when you get to the world where I want to play off of a stride stop? And I can shoot a little pull-up, but I can't get to the rim and use clever fakes. And then if I'm the other player, well, it's most likely going to be a catch 3, maybe a shot fake with a sidestep, or I re-attack myself. Right there, that's skill work. And you just created a path or something for your team and players. But how many, and I'm guilty of it too. I watch a video of Tyler Ralph. I love what he's doing. And there's nothing wrong with routines that might help a player to get a little bit lower. It might just be like sometimes it's just ball handling. It's just passing, right? But the majority of it should be, in my opinion, actions, shots that, like you said, that they're going to see in games, so that in games they're prepared and they're not surprised.
No, absolutely. I mean, we want to be efficient at everything that we do. And so that's from a player development standpoint. That's in practice. That's in games, obviously. We want to be efficient. So we don't want to waste energy working on something that we're not going to use or that we're only going to use one time. Like we want to work on the things that we're doing consistently in the game. And I think that's when, your assistant coaches really come into play especially at this level. These guys are in the gym with our guys, consistently working on the things that we're using in games. And you've seen it, right? Our guards are tough. Our guards are physical. Our guards get to the foul line. Our guards hit open shots. And when you're working on things with a purpose and it's efficient and you're not wasting energy doing things that don't translate, one, and two, don't work anyway, right? Then you kind of eliminate those distractions. And I know Tyler well. I mean, he's great, and I love watching his stuff. And all of our AAU guys work with him. And I think that one of the things that he does is he works on those things and he builds their confidence up.
Yep.
And so now you have confidence. You're working on all these things, and you're building those reps so that it becomes natural. And I think that's what the goal of player development is one, as an offense, we're trying to manufacture a certain type of shot. And then we've got to go to the lab and work on how these guys can create those, right? Or using what they're good at, the quick guys or the physical guys or the athletic guys, and then turning that into an advantage so that we can be as efficient as possible.
Early on in our talk, you were discussing a lot about your culture, and you did mention that your family is a part of your program. Your wife and your daughter, you said? Your
Yes, sir.
daughter is around and a part of, which is great. Parents are there too. I think balancing coaching and family life is difficult at any level. And I can't imagine a guy like you said, it's year round. You don't take breaks. How do you balance that coaching with your family life?
Uh, I think one, we all have mentors. And so, these are questions that I've asked throughout the time with certain mentors that I've had. And then obviously I get to witness kind of how they do their balance, right? And I've been blessed to work with some really, really high level people who operate at the highest level of efficiency. Obviously the president of our college, Michael Sorrell, he's got speaking engagements. He's the president of our college. Uh, he's traveling around the world. He's raising money. And then I see him in the gym with his son all the time. That's crazy. And then, I was at Drive Nation for 4 years, 5 years, and seeing Jermaine O'Neal, a former NBA
He
player,
does a lot. He does a lot, man.
he owns the agency. He's got the high school. He's got Drive Nation. Other business ventures as well, and being able to see the capacity that they have, uh, walking into an airport and everybody wants to shake his hand and everybody wants to take a picture. And so that's really what I learned, and I've worked with a lot of great guys, Nick Van Exel, Hollis Price, Bill Peterson, Eduardo Nájera. Like I've worked with some high level people and being able to see how they turn it on when it needs to be turned on, and then they can quickly turn it back off and go back to just being them. I think that's one of the biggest things that I learned in my time with these high level, high performing human beings. And so, in the morning, that's my time with my girls, with my wife, with my daughter. A couple of days a week, my wife goes in a little bit later, so we get time to like hang out and have breakfast, or sometimes
Hmm.
she'll go and she'll work out in the morning to kind of get it over with. That's my time to be dad. It's daddy daughter time. If my wife goes to work out, you know, I wake up with her, change her, feed her, hang out before my mother-in-law comes over to take care of the baby. And that's I'm not answering phone calls unless it's something important. I'm spending time. I'm being present in the moment. I'm enjoying it. Uh, I've got food all over the place, and half the time I don't know what I'm doing anyway. But that time is special and it's important. And then the second I walk out the door and I lock the door, I'm coach. I've got and I drive 45 minutes from Fort Worth to Paul Quinn. So
Wow.
I every second of that car ride. I'm calling parents. I'm recruiting. I'm talking to coaches. I'm scheduling. Coaches are calling me about our players. I'm trying to get a players recruitment on the AAU side picked up. So I got to make some calls to kind of shake the trees for them. So I got to utilize that time, and I've got to be able to turn it on the second I walk out the door because I've already missed out on an hour and a half worth of work, right? So let's make up for it in other ways.
Mm.
And then the second I walk back in the door at home, I've got to be able to shut it down. I've got to get those calls made on the way back home so that I can be dad again. And I think that's one of the things that I've really tried to work on in order to get that balance. I have to be able to turn it on and I have to be able to turn it off. And the more balance that you have in your life, the easier you can do that. When my wife knows I gotta take this call, she's like, "Hey, give me the baby." You know, I got you. Cool. In the morning, she knows I'm not answering a call unless it's a must-have phone call. Otherwise, I'll call them on the way back. Oh, okay.
Mm.
But the ability to be able to do that, one is because of my mentors and because of the questions and the relationships that I've had that I've built, and then watching those guys do it actively on a daily basis with a high bandwidth,
Yeah.
and then figuring out that balance for myself, and then just kind of putting it into play.
Man, I love that. I love the systems that you have in place to kind of help. And you're right on the money. I mean, it's hard to be on all the time and everything. And so really choosing those moments and but making sure that your family doesn't suffer or that time is special. Let me ask you this though. So there is you turning it off and on with your phone and with maybe doing some things on a computer. But my question maybe is like, especially in season, you're at home. How do you turn it off up here? Have you figured out how yet to where you're present with your family and you're there, but are
Mm.
you thinking about the game tomorrow or the game that you just had or the conversation you had that? Because I think I struggle with I'm with my family, but sad to say that in my head, I might be still still in the game, still watching film in my head. How do you deal with that?
I think we all have that, right? I think if you're a good coach, you have that. You're always kind of on your toes, and so I don't think it'll ever 100% completely go away, right? And it's funny because I was just talking to my wife about this. I don't have any like hobbies. You know what I mean? Like none. I'm coaching basketball or I'm with my family, and that's it. I don't fish, I don't hunt, I don't boys trips, I don't golf, I don't do any of that because in my head it takes away from the extra time that I have to spend with my family, and that time to me is important. Uh, and I remember when I was in junior college, two quick little
Yeah.
tips about this. When I was in junior college, I worked at Bossier Parish Community College with a guy named Chris Lovell, and he's a former youth pastor. He's a head coach at Prestonwood Baptist Church.
He's the
We,
reason I have this job, man. It's kind of funny, the small world. He was the head coach at Faith the year before I
yeah,
got here. When he was going to go to Prestonwood, him and Randy Feemster both knew me and helped connect me to this place. So yeah, Coach Level's awesome. Yeah.
yeah, that's my guy. We actually share the same birthday twins. I always make fun of him for that, but so he used to say something all the time, and he's like, don't waste to our guys when they were acting up. Don't waste my time away from my family. He used to say that all the time. And at the time I was like, bro, like we're all here working. You know what I mean? Like, but now that I have a family, I'm like, he's right. Like this time we have, and that's why I'm so big on efficiency. I don't want to practice 4 hours because I'm so intense in practice. Like my energy, like I want to be able, like let's knock this out. And then the other thing, when I was with Drive, Jermaine used to tell me, he's like, you don't know what you're talking about. You don't have kids. He's like, you have no idea. And I was offended by it. And I was like, in your head, you're like, this guy thinks he knows everything, and whatever. I'm the best version I can be, and I love these kids. But he was right. And
Mm.
like the third day I had a baby, I called him and I was like, bro, you're right. I get it now. Like it's crazy. It didn't take a month or a year. It took 3 days.
Mm.
And so I think, that for me is big. Being able to separate those things, being able to manage those things. uh I mean, it's just big. And so that way, to get back to it, that way when I'm at home, I know that I've grinded, I know that I've put the work in. We did the scout, we went over everything in practice, our guys are prepared. Now it's time to go home and be dad, and I'm okay with that.
Mm.
We're never going to just 100% not think about it. I'll put my daughter down. I'll spend time with my wife. She goes to bed early. I'm more of a night owl. So then if I do have something else that I need to do, I can kind of knock it out before I go to bed.
Coach, that's great. And I appreciate you sharing that. And I think a little bit of, I guess, comforting is the word I'm thinking about, but it maybe just lets me off the hook a little bit, where you say, we do our very, very best, but sometimes it's going to be hard to turn it 100%. Like, I don't want to feel guilty because we care so much about what we're doing. We care about these players. We love the game and I think also too, it's up to us, or maybe those younger coaches out there that aren't married yet, like, find the one that is going to understand the mission, the calling that we have, and how important this is. And that even though she's going to be first and our kids are going to be first, man, it's not like it's a far second. Like these kids and everything we're doing with this job, it's important too. But I appreciate you sharing, and I think some really good ideas for ways to attempt to have the balance that you're talking about.
Yeah, and you know what? One of the things that I actually like too, because my guys, and obviously it's a little bit different for you because you're at the high school level, right? And I don't do it as much with my AAU guys. Uh, but I like to text my guys. So especially like the night before the game, like, and it's not about the specific game, but I like to text my guys a little bit later before I go to bed and just kind of, check on them. Hey man, how's, mom? Or hey, how's your girl? Or hey, just communicating. I would rather make a phone call and be like, hey, what's up? How's it going? But that's not how they communicate.
That's right. Yeah.
From a couple text messages, not about the game, but it's the day before the game because I know my assistants are tired of hearing from me about it because we've been going at it for the last 4 or 5 days. So kind of giving them a break, and then just kind of touching base with my players about other things. I think that really helps me too. So yeah, I want to be present, and I am present with my family, and we're hanging out. Usually the night before a game, we go to dinner. We go out to dinner, just to kind of get out of the house so I'm not stir crazy. And then once we put the baby down and spend our time together, I'll text my guys about, non-basketball stuff. I think that's really what works for me, Coach.
Coaches, the Jamodi podcast is powered by Shoot 360. The future of basketball has arrived in Dallas-Fort Worth. Shoot 360 combines the latest sports technology with the fundamentals of basketball skill development. The result is a one-of-a-kind video game-like basketball program designed to improve your shooting, dribbling, and passing. Visit shoot360dfw.com to learn more and register for your free 1-hour workout evaluation. Shoot 360, the future of basketball is here. Coach, the speed round. My sister, so many people in DFW think they know who you are. And then, but after the speed round, we'll really know. You ready?
Let's do it.
Favorite ice cream flavor?
Oh man, butter pecan.
Greatest shooter of all time?
Steph.
Best basketball movie of all time.
Blue Chips.
Oh, good one. Good one. You kind of said this a little bit with your players, but texting or talking?
Uh, I think the issue, but it's talking.
Yeah. One of my favorite answers is just it depends on who it is. Like I better talk to my mom, but I need to text my players. um, okay, I already know this for high school shot clock or no shot clock. We already got that shot clock, right?
Oh yeah.
Favorite holiday?
I would say Easter. You
Nice.
know,
This is a new one. Up three on defense, 7 seconds left. Foul or no foul?
no foul.
Let it play it out.
We're playing it out.
I think I'm on those lines. And then I'm watching a game and I see him foul and it works out, or the opposite. They hit a three, go into overtime and lose. I'm like, oh, maybe I should foul. But you got to know before, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
I mean, we work on that situational stuff. Like I love that. Like,
Yeah.
hey, 7 seconds down, our ball under the basket or on the baseline. Like we work on that stuff all the time. So I love it. And what I see in practice from us, I would imagine it's something similar with other places because we really prepare for those moments. I'm not fouling.
What book would you give somebody?
Outliers.
In basketball, who is the GOAT?
MJ.
Two
But
more.
LeBron's right there.
He's not far behind. I don't like it. Like just because we say MJ doesn't mean we think LeBron sucks. Like he's a
No,
good
he's
play. He's a great
right.
player.
He's got a chance. He's got a chance to pass him. I mean that hurts. That hurts to admit, but he's been so special for so long. I mean,
Great for the
it's
game. Great off the court too.
absolutely great for the game and really a role model in every sense of the word.
Maybe even more than some of those that we might call the GOAT. Uh, if you watch Last Dance and you watch, I mean,
Yeah,
that's
and I get it. I just think to have those type of expectations, otherworldly expectations as a high school player,
Coach. Were
and to go
you weren't called the king in high school? Is that not? 'Cause I wasn't either. I don't.
and blow those expectations out of the water
Yeah.
in social media era with no kind of issues and a family man. I just so he's moving in that direction.
Two more. Favorite place you want to travel or you like to travel?
Uh, we like Cancun. We've been there a bunch. We go to Cancun and we love it as a family.
Last one. Probably most important. How many cups of coffee do you drink per day?
Oh, I've been on my mom about drinking coffee too. I would say a cup and a half.
That's not bad, Coach. Yeah, that's
It's
not
not.
bad.
It's really not. And anytime I watch these, like, you're scrolling sometimes and you watch these health advocates talk about how it's really not that bad to drink coffee, it makes me want to drink more. But I've kind of limited it to a cup and a half to two.
Good for you, man, that you've been able to do that.
But whatever those guys are selling, I'm buying. I want to drink more.
Coach, this was awesome, man. We've been trying to get on this call for it feels like a year and a half now. And I'm so glad we did because all the places that you've coached and the amount of time you spend coaching at the different levels. I mean, high level select basketball, and then what you've been able to do with Paul Quinn and the way that people talk about you. It's just you're one of those guys that I wanted to meet and loved getting to learn about your culture and the way that you just run your program. This has been awesome, man.
Oh, thanks, Coach. I really appreciate it. We've worked really hard everywhere we've been. From high school to junior college to the G League to the EYBL, and now here at Paul Quinn. And these opportunities, I don't take them for granted. You know, to have the opportunity to be a head coach as a Hispanic, and you don't see a lot of them in basketball, and to be able to do it at an HBCU is really a huge blessing. that's two life goals at one place. Obviously, being a college head coach and then coaching at an HBCU. I always wanted to coach at an HBCU, and then for it to be right here in Dallas. I mean, the city has just taken care of me. I'm from Houston, but I've been here in the DFW area since 2004, and the city has just been so gracious to me. And this is home now. We live in Fort Worth. That's where my wife is from, and we love it. But to be able to do this and to live out my dream, as just some kid from Houston, this I couldn't ask for anything else. I mean, this is special.
Coach, if anybody wants to learn a little bit more, have more conversations with you, what's a good way for them to get in touch or to follow you?
I mean, I'm pretty active on social media. I think that's a starting place. Obviously, if somebody wants anything more in depth, I mean, we can connect, via email, and then I'm always open, to having meetings or Zooms or whatever. Obviously, because my schedule is so crazy, coaching UIBL and then, literally recruiting, 365 days out of the year for both levels. I think some of those things can be difficult, but like me and you, we figured it out. We worked it out. Things like this are important, and being able to check on each other more often and not have an agenda. To me, like that's really what we should be doing with each other as coaches.
Love that, man. Appreciate your time so much. This was awesome. Thank you for checking out today's episode. Please take a moment to subscribe to this podcast, share it with your fellow coaches, and find us on social media for what's coming up next on the Jamodi podcast. It's just a matter of doing it.